This is Larry London, it's the Voice of America, and we're inside of a tour bus today. We're here in Baltimore, Maryland, and we'd like to welcome to the world and to the Voice of America, Elly Jackson, who is the face and the voice of Roux. Welcome to the Voice of America.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
And congratulations on what's been, I'm sure, a very whirlwind year here now for you with the release of the album, Roux, and the success of Bulletproof. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you, thank you. It has been a bit of a strange year, hard-working year, and a lot of amazing things have happened, but it's been great.
Now, I've gotten a few emails from some of our listeners around the world who wanted me to ask you some questions, so we'll get some basic questions. First of all, the look. A lot of people are comparing you to Lady Gaga. That's one person they're saying she's the British Lady Gaga. How does that feel to you when you hear about that?
I think from the moment you start being an artist, you always get told to get very used to being compared to people, but I think just as much as probably anyone doesn't like being compared to anyone, I doubt Lady Gaga probably likes being compared to me. Do you know what I mean? I think you know, I respect her very much as a pop star, but we're very different artists. I think it's very easy. People, whenever there's an easy comparison to make, people will make it, you know, because I might have, you know, slightly, to some people, crazy, for want of a better word, hair or whatever, you know, people see that as being, oh, that's a parallel with Gaga because she wears kind of crazy outfits or whatever, or, you know, just sort of pushing the boundaries a bit. But you know, I think as far as musically and all of that kind of thing goes, and even visually, you know, she's a very different kind of out there sort of style. I think there's far more differences between us, but it's, you know, very flattering to be compared to somebody that's so successful, you know, when we're just starting out. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
You mentioned the hair. Has that always been part of the look for you, or is that something in the recent years, or? It
kind of developed over the course of making the record. I can't remember exactly when. It was kind of over a Christmas, I think around 2008, 2007, I'm not really sure. But I basically was fed. I used to be very kind of folky, and I was very into Joni Mitchell and stuff as a kid, like very, very much so. I still am, but sort of stopped being a musical influence. And I had long straight hair down to sort of here. And I just kind of was a bit bored by it. I was always slightly bored by my hair. I'm from a family with very, very thin, very fine kind of hair that you can't really do much with, and I was always just like, sort of, I don't want hair like this. I'm really bored by it. And I sort of just started cutting my hair and playing with it and putting different products in it, etc., you know, like you do when you're bored. And it just sort of happened, and then my dad started calling me Rick Astley, and then I thought that was quite funny. I found that quite amusing, and I thought, oh, you know, maybe this could be quite funny. And then it just sort of stuck, and it's become quite a big deal. I didn't really kind of mean for it to be, and it's certainly not a hairstyle. I don't think I'll have it for very much longer, to be honest. But I think it's been great. It's served me very well for this record, and it's certainly been something that people have, you know, as a point that people notice about you, which I suppose is kind of always a good thing as a pop star. You want something for people to be able to find recognisable, you know, instantly recognisable. So although that wasn't the aim, I think it's actually served me pretty well. But it's a bit of a weird one, the hair, yeah.
Well, you're very beautiful. So you have, you know, beautiful eyes.
Thank you.
Beautiful features. So interesting comparison. Also, people say Annie Lennox. Now, I think she may have been somewhat influential in your music, because I know you've gone for the '80s sound with the first album. You know, Human League and Emotion and some of the big '80s techno pop bands certainly, you know, largely influenced the first album. I heard in the second album that you're going to go in another direction. You
know, I think there's not. It's certainly we have to go in another direction. I think just like any act, I think if you make the same album twice, I think that's just a bit foolish. You know, I think we've grown, you know, musically. Also, I think you have to remember that we made that record. Now, I mean, a long time ago for us. I think as musicians and as songwriters, that's a long time gone for us. The making of that record. We started making it about 6 years ago. So, you know, your musical influences and the things that you're into change so much over the course of 6 years. Mine changed over the course of 3 weeks, you know. So I think we certainly still love, I still love bands like Heaven 17 and Eurythmics. You don't stop loving bands like Eurythmics. That's why they're such great bands. But I think, you know, we're still going to have elements of that. We'll always have elements of that kind of bouncy synth thing. That's what Roux is a lot about, for now anyway. but I'd like it to be a bit sexier, you know, not in the kind of obvious sense of talking about sex or wearing miniskirts or anything like that. I think in the way it sounds, you know. David Bowie, I think Young Americans is a great example of an album that sounds very sexy without talking about sex or being, you know, overtly open about sex or anything. It's just that the sound of it is quite sexy. I think I'd like to do that a lot more. I think I'd like to introduce some more natural instruments, and I'd really like you know, the album and the songs to have a much more epic and warm sort of feel. You know, I think that's something that we didn't really get to touch on the first record, and that wouldn't have been right for the first record. It was a very tight, angular, kind of cheap DIY sounding record, which was totally what we wanted. But I think for the next record we'd like to just broaden our horizons a bit, you know. So yeah, it's definitely going to move on. I think if it didn't, I don't think anyone would buy it.
Have you been recording songs for the next album?
Yeah, we have. We started work in the last couple of months. We haven't had much time, unfortunately. We've sort of been I've been moving house, which has sort of taken up quite a lot of my time, and just getting our lives together from being on tour for about a year and a half. You know, we're on tour now, but this is our last stretch until we get straight into properly making the next record. So we've done a few things. We spent a couple of weeks together, me and Ben, who's the other half of Roux, to anyone that doesn't know, and I'm very excited, but there's a lot of work to do, and I think at the moment it's very much at the beginning stages of kind of like piecing things together, piecing ideas together, you know, just trying different things out, you know, and we won't get into the production or the kind of sound or the sonics of the record probably until the last couple of months of the record, where we'll take it into a big studio and sort it all out. But at the moment it's just getting the crux of the songs down, really.
Now, I know it's not easy to tour and to be an artist. A lot of people think it's a very glamorous life, and in certain respects it can be, but it's also a grind. And I know that we tried to get you on the show when you were here last, I don't know, 6-7 months ago.
No, I'm so sorry, yeah.
So, I mean, you're okay now? Everything's all right? You had some throat issues? Everything okay?
Yeah, I did. It was weird, actually. I think basically, I think just touring just took its toll on me a little bit. You know, I've never been one to party on tour, you know. So I don't, you know, it wasn't anything like that, like I think it is with a lot of artists. They sort of go in their first year and they get, oh, all right, I'll get on the booze, you know, but it's never really sort of suited me, that look. But I got bronchitis, really, and, you know, any amount of coughing, any vocal coach or anyone will tell you, you know, it's the worst thing you can do for your vocal folds. Basically, every single time you cough, you're bashing together your larynx like that, and it's really bad for your throat. And I kind of nearly gave myself nodules or polyps. And so I was ordered by a doctor to basically just stop singing and go home. So I did, and I've had to sort of retrain myself how to sing, basically. I've had to relearn how to sing in the last couple of months, so it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot about my throat and, you know, the intricacies of the instrument, and how to use it and stuff, so I don't get into trouble in the future. But basically I got ill and I started using my voice in the wrong way, which was quite a scary thing to happen to you on tour. So I've just been trying to repair myself, and here I am. I wouldn't say it was 100% back yet, but, you know, I'm able to tour again, and I'm very, very glad of it.
Now, one of the interesting things about your career has been that you started off in folk music.
Yeah.
And then you've transitioned to a pop techno sound. So, I mean, did you find that an easy transition? Is it something that you want to go back to, the folk music that you were recording before, or?
It was a very easy transition. It sort of happened in a matter of about 2 weeks. It was really odd. I just suddenly, you know, I'd been writing on the guitar. I'd been given a guitar by my dad. Well, I'd begged him for a guitar from the age of about 5, and he was very good at the guitar, and he played a lot of blues and rock and roll and boogie woogie around the house, and he was great at the guitar and the piano, and I was always like, oh, I really want to do that. I'm really fascinated by that. All right, Tony. So yeah, it was a weird transition. It was like, I'd grown up and around a lot of folk music, a lot of Nick Drake, a lot of Joni Mitchell, a lot of rock and roll, a lot of blues, and a lot of old great music, and I took that on in a big way, and I loved it and respected it, and I wanted to use it in my songwriting. And then I think I got to about 16, 17, and I discovered clubbing, and I was like, this is a bit more fun actually. And it's not that it's better in any way, but I just thought actually I was really having to think about the type of artist that I really wanted to be, and I realised that there were quite a few limitations with being an acoustic artist. You know, I didn't want to be a country artist. You know, I know if you start out as a folk artist, there really, genuinely, honestly, there isn't many places you can go. People aren't going to take you seriously as a dance act when you've just released a folk record. It's just not going to happen. In an ideal world, yes, it would, but it's not going to happen. And I just got hugely into electronica, you know, early techno, early house, you know, Kraftwerk, early Depeche Mode, stuff like that, and like the Knife and modern kind of dance acts, and even stuff like Justice at the time I really liked. And I just sort of got flooded by all this new music, and I got so excited by it, and we had all these songs, and I was like, can we just change them all? Can we just strip them all back just to the vocal and just completely redo everything? And Ben was like, great, I grew up in the 80s, let me get my synths out, you know. And we just sort of, I just sort of happened. I suddenly, I could hear all the songs in a completely different way. I remember Fascination particularly, I could hear the whole backing track in my head. I was like, well, I know the chord structure. If we just do this and this and this and this and this. And I remember singing him each part down the street. I remember walking down the street to get lunch one day, and I remember going, da 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 da, like that. And I remember he was like, oh, I don't really know what you're talking about. And then we went back into the studio and we did it, and it all just sort of started to work. And there was a bit of hostility around it at first, especially from my friends. They were like, what are you doing? You know, you're a folk artist. And I was like, well, I am, and I still really respect that and I love that, but it's not who I want to be. I wouldn't be able to get off a stool, you know, if I was that artist. So for me, it was a really important transition.
Well, you know, with all of the success that you've had, you know, you mentioned you were working on the album for a number of years now, and in the UK, you were very famous long before you became famous in the US. I mean, we just discovered you in the last year. But I was going to ask you the difference between the British audiences and the American audiences. Now that you've spent a lot of time touring here and meeting people, having come from the UK, I mean, what's been the biggest difference you've noticed?
That's a good question. The big difference is that American audiences seem to look like they're having a lot more fun. I know I love my country and I love London and I'll never live anywhere else, you know. But there's something about, and Europe's great as well, but something about in England, they just, it's like you can tell they're enjoying it, kind of, but it's weird. It's almost like they come to a show and they're just, it's almost like they're just standing there and it's like they're going, come on. It's a really odd thing. I don't know what it is, and I love my country as much as the next man, but American audiences are amazing. They are amazing, and they are pretty much the best around the world. And I'm really not just saying that. You know, they come and they smile from ear to ear the whole gig. They look like they've been looking forward to it for months. You know, like people used to. And it's just always a great atmosphere. You know, people aren't there to judge or to see if you're gonna mess up. They're there to go, great, I'm getting to see, you know, my favourite artist or one of my favourite artists or whatever. And that's, as a performer, not what you want, but what you need as well. You know, it is, and I really find it very difficult to perform to the extent that I can and that I'm capable of when you don't feel like you're being received in you know, like people are kind of there to sort of judge in a way. And I don't know if that's what is going on inside English audiences' heads. I'm probably completely wrong. I mean, maybe we just have a completely different nature about us. We are completely different nations, you know, but the American audiences are amazing, and that's why we love touring here. Because I mean, our sound guy, for instance, had never been here with us before, and he came and he said, God, they're amazing, aren't they? And I was like, they really are amazing.
Now, how about traveling internationally? How does it feel for you? Like, I like to ask artists, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter what culture you're from, but when you perform, let's say, in a place like Japan, where they don't speak English, but they know all the lyrics to LaRue songs. Well,
Japan don't really like LaRue that much.
Really?
I don't think so. We've been to Japan once. We played one show. It's a great show. But there isn't really a market for us out there. I don't know, it's weird. I mean, my mum always said, oh, you'll be really big in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, electronic music. I don't know, didn't really work out for us. Maybe we didn't go there enough. Maybe we, you know, spent too much time here. You know, we did focus a lot on here, but I don't, you know, we have been here a lot. I don't know, it's very difficult to cover the whole world all the time. But I don't know, maybe that's something that we can touch on later records or something. But Japanese, everyone says Japanese gigs are very different, but I've only really had one experience of them. But they're very quiet and respectful, and they listen, you know, and then in between songs they go nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I get a lot of email from the troops who are requesting Bulletproof and requesting music from your band. So I wanted to give you a chance to say hi, you know, the troops who are tuned in now.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just...
Hello, thank you very much for listening, and I hope that my music continues to set you on your way.
It's Elly Jackson from Roux we're talking to here on The Voice of America. The first album already getting all kinds of awards, Mercury songwriting honors, nominated for MTV Europe Awards, all kinds of accolades and attention that you got. I saw you on the Ellen Show performing
that was great.
A number of months ago. And you mentioned Ben Langmaid a few times. How did you meet Ben? How did you form this Roux? How did this come together? We
met through an old friend of his, actually. I was at a party and I was talking to this guy, and he said, oh, what do you do? And I was still at school, and I said, oh, I write songs and I would like play guitar, and you know, and he was like, okay, you know, but he must hear that all the time, and I just thought, I don't know why I'm bothering, you know. And he said, oh, it's interesting. He said, you know, I think sometimes you can tell when someone's kind of says, oh, I write songs, and they mean it, or when they don't. And I think he obviously saw in my eyes that I was like, I really do want to write music, you know. And he said, oh, I'm going to put you in touch with a friend of mine. And actually the friend of his that he was supposed to put me in touch with never called me, so he put me in touch with Ben instead. And he said, oh, Ben's going to give you a call or something. And a couple of months later, and me and Ben spoke on the phone, talked about influences, and I said, oh, you know, I listen to a lot of folk music, Nick Drake and da-da-da-da. And I said, Ben's told me, you know, since then, from his perspective, hearing a 17-year-old say that and being so passionate about Nick Drake and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and stuff like that, for him was a bit of a breath of fresh air, you know, rather than like, I like Justin Timberlake, you know. Justin Timberlake's great and everything. But you know, I think that was a bit of a breath of fresh air for him, and he was interested by that, and we met, and I played him a few things that I'd written, and he was like, yep, you need development massively. And you know, we worked together for a few years and wrote some songs, and I worked my voice and got my voice a lot stronger. My voice was very weak when I started. I was very scared, I was very timid, very quiet. No one can believe that anymore. And yeah, it just sort of grew from there, really.
Now, just listening to you speak and you know, watching you perform, you're far more mature than 22.
Thank you.
You show much more experience and much more, you know, professionalism than, you know, somebody who's only been doing this a short amount of time. But you've been doing this a long time.
I think you know, Ben's a fair bit older than me, and I think all of my friends for the last 5 or 6 years, I have 1 or 2 school friends still. But mainly I think I just started, I don't know why, well, my sister's, she's my PA, she's my assistant, she's over there, and she's 6 years older than me, and I just sort of started hanging out with her and her friends about 6 years ago, and I don't know, I think when you hang out with people who are 6 years older than you, you probably start to act 6 years older than yourself, I don't know. But yeah, I think, you know, just in this industry as well, you have to grow up pretty quickly. You don't have much choice.
She's not going to mind that you say that she's 6 years older than you.
No.
While she's in her 20s. When she gets in her 30s, she's not going to want you to say that she's 6 years older.
But it's okay. People still look at us and go, which one's older? Which one's younger? She likes that.
Now, so when's the next album coming out? When can we expect that?
I couldn't say for sure, obviously. I mean, ideally, you know, we know, you know, we're not stupid, we know we can't take forever with this record, but at the same time, music can't be rushed, you know, and good music certainly can't be rushed. So I think ideally, you know, we'd love to have it out by sort of spring, late spring, 2011, but we'll have to see. Well, it's, at the moment, the road we're on at the moment, that's perfectly possible, but it's just sort of depends. There are always the little anomalies that come in at the end of making a record of, oh God, we've got to record that, and I forgot about that, and we've got to do that choir, and you know, so you know, you never know, but hopefully end of spring.
Didn't you just do a project with Kanye West?
Yeah, well, we did. I wouldn't really call it a project, but he did a remix of "In for the Kill," which is our next single. Please buy it. You know, not very good at selling myself, but that's my attempt. Please buy our new single. And yeah, he did a remix of In for the Kill, which was great for us, and it's great because it makes it means it is, you know, it means it can kind of reach a different market that maybe the original wouldn't reach, which is brilliant for any act to have that opportunity, which is what remixes do anyway. You know, you have a dance remix and it reaches a kind of more clubby audience than it would normally, so that's brilliant for us. But he asked to work with us for a few months over summer. He'd been kind of bugging us, and he was like, you know, I've been kind of on your case for like months now. And I was like, oh, I didn't, because my manager didn't really tell me, but yeah, it was very flattering. And I did some kind of, for want of a better expression, some BVs on his backing vocals on his new record, which was great. And he's got people like Elton John and Alicia Keys and Bon Iver and stuff to kind of sing on his record to create these kind of very, very interesting and unique vocal textures. And his kind of theory is that if you've got the best at your fingertips, you should use it. And it's kind of like people sit around, you know, bands always sit around and say, oh, if you could have your dream band, you know, who would it be? Would it be this drummer and that guitarist and da da da? I'm like, that's kind of what he's done. He's like a kind of excited man in a toy shop. He's gone, I want this and I want that and I want that, and it's going to sound amazing, and it does.
Well, Roux sounds great, you sound great, and I look forward to the next album coming out. Of course, there's more music, as you just said, coming from this current album, and we're going to listen to the new track, listen to all the songs that come off the existing album, and wait for the new one. And when the new one does come out, please promise that you'll come back and join us again.
I promise I will.
We would love to have you back on. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. I'm sorry we had to postpone it.
No, you're a beautiful girl, and you have tremendous talent, and it's always great to meet people who have a refreshing approach to music and a new great sound as you do. So, Elly Jackson's our guest. It's Roux. This is the Voice of America in Baltimore. Can we get you to do a couple IDs?
Yeah, no problem.
Do you need a drink or anything?
I'm all right.
Okay. So if you just look at the camera and, you know, hi, I'm Elly, Roux, and you're watching the Voice of America.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Elly Jackson from Roux, and you're watching the Voice of America.
Perfect. Look good? Okay, and the rest are audio. You don't need to look at the camera.
Okay.
It's audio only. This is for our LatAm service, and they have a show. You know, it's broadcast for Latin America. It's called USA Top 10.
Okay.
So just however.
So hey, this is Roux. You're listening to USA Top 10. Okay, cool. Hi, this is Elly Jackson from Roux, and you're listening to the USA Top 10.
Perfect. And this one's for Indonesia, and the show is called VOA DC.
VOA DC, cool. Hi, this is Elly Jackson from Roux, and you're listening to VOA DC.
Perfect. And the last one is for me, my show.
No problem.
Give me shit if you want, so whatever you want to say. Larry London is my name, by the way.
Harry London.
Larry
nice.
London, yeah.
Good name.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Elly Jackson from Roux, and you're listening to Larry London.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you.